Hello and welcome to our morning edition of Arirang News. We begin with these stories making the headlines at this hour. Korea's industry minister is in Washington for high-stakes talks on trade and investment, seeking to launch the first project under Seoul's U.S. investment pledge, while pushing to preserve the 15% tariff ceiling and strengthen cooperation. In the Middle East, Trump has escalated his warnings to Iran, threatening possible strikes on a suspected nuclear site at Pickaxe Mountain, as U.S. Central Command carries out its 12th day of attacks. Despite headwinds from tensions in the Middle East, Korea's economy grew 0.6% in the second quarter on the back of robust chip exports. President Lee Jae-myung will embark on an 11-day trip to the US and South America this week. He will meet global AI CEOs, including Nvidia's Jensen Huang, and meet with the leaders of Brazil, Chile, and Argentina to strengthen economic cooperation. Yoon Jung-min reports.
A key takeaway from the president's trip will be his one-on-one meetings with big tech CEOs. On Friday, President Lee Jae-myung will meet with Nvidia's Jensen Huang, OpenAI's Sam Altman, and Anthropic's Daeseo Amodei, among other CEOs of global AI firms.
Through the meetings with the CEOs of global big tech companies, we will highlight our commitment and full support for AI investment and plan to encourage investment cooperation from key firms.
An AI summit will be held in San Francisco on Friday, attended by Samsung's Lee Jae-yong, SK's Choi Tae-won, Hyundai Motors' Chung Ui-sun, and Naver's Lee Hae-jin, along with the big tech CEOs. MOUs will be signed between Korean firms and the global tech firms, and President Lee will announce his AI vision for related global cooperation.
Major Korean firms and global big tech firms will gather together. It will be a chance to expand our vision for the 3 mega projects on a global level.
Lee will then head to Brazil for a summit with President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva, with a focus on resuming talks on a trade agreement with the South American bloc and hold a business roundtable.
We will expand trade and investment with key economic powerhouses in South America, Brazil, Chile, and Argentina. We will expand our diplomatic horizons to the global South.
Over in Santiago, the Korean leader will meet with his Chilean counterpart, Jose Antonio Casts, before flying to Buenos Aires to meet Argentine President Javier Milei. Their focus will be strengthening their partnership on trade as well as economic security, energy, and food security. On the way home, the president will stop by Germany to meet Koreans residing in that country. Yoon Jung-min, Arirang News.
Ahead of President Lee's trip, Trade Minister Kim Jong-un is also in the US to hold high-level talks on the upcoming tariff adjustments and Seoul's major investment plans. Park Jun-an reports.
Korea's Industry Minister Kim Jong-un arrived in Washington, D.C. on Wednesday to coordinate major economic priorities with top U.S. officials, including Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick. At the top of the agenda is finalizing the first project under Korea's $200 billion investment pledge. Kim noted that discussions are focusing heavily on the energy sector to secure a stable cash flow, with an official announcement expected as early as late August. The visit comes at a critical moment as Washington prepares to transition from temporary global tariffs expiring this week to new measures under Section 301 of the U.S. Trade Act of 1974. Seoul is firmly emphasizing that the 15% tariff ceiling established under the bilateral trade agreement must be maintained. To aid weight to these critical negotiations, Trade Minister Yoh Han-gu is also in Washington as he is expected to coordinate with U.S. Trade Representative Jamieson Greer. Another item on Minister Kim's agenda is U.S. political concerns over U.S.-listed e-commerce firm Coupang, with Seoul seeking to resolve misunderstandings before they escalate into broader trade friction. Some lawmakers in Washington claim the company faces discriminatory treatment in Korea, raising concerns that the issue could evolve into a broader trade issue.
We have continuously provided explanations regarding areas where there were some misunderstandings on the U.S. side. And I do not believe the Korea-U.S. alliance will be shaken by a single issue like this.
The industry minister's visit also highlights a deepening partnership in the maritime sector. With $150 billion out of Korea's $350 billion U.S. investment package going into shipbuilding, The move reflects a strong mutual commitment to rebuilding the maritime industry together, placing Korea at the center of this strategic partnership. Park Junan, Arirang News.
With U.S. Central Command reportedly carrying out its 12th consecutive day of airstrikes, Washington is preparing to escalate its military campaign against Iran. Plans to deploy heavy bombers against the key nuclear-related site are stoking concerns about rising tensions in the Middle East. Lee Seung-jae has more.
The United States has reportedly informed Israel that it plans to intensify its military campaign against Iran in the coming days, including possible strikes by heavy bombers on the Pickaxe Mountain site near the central Iranian city of Qom. According to the Times of Israel on Wednesday, the operation would mark the first use of U.S. heavy bombers against Iran since this year's joint U.S.-Israeli military campaign. The report said Washington notified Israel in advance as part of close security coordination, giving Israeli authorities time to prepare for a possible Iranian retaliation, including missile attacks. The report follows repeated warnings from U.S. President Donald Trump over the past week that the Pickaxe Mountain site would be targeted pretty soon.
Normally I wouldn't say that. If I thought they could do something about it, I would never say that. But we'll be hitting that area pretty soon. And very heavily.
President Trump also escalated his rhetoric on Wednesday, saying the United States would destroy an Iranian bridge or power plant every time Iran attacks a ship in the Strait of Hormuz, forcing Tehran to make a deal with the U.S.
This is with this skirmish we have with the Islamic Republic of Iran, and I call it that because let me tell you, they're getting hit so hard, and they want to make a deal.
Meanwhile, U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio called on America's Asian partners to help safeguard shipping through the strategic waterway. Speaking in Manila while attending the ASEAN Foreign Ministers meeting on Wednesday, Rubio said it would be in the interest of Asian allies to deploy warships or other naval assets to ensure the safe passage of civilian vessels. When asked whether Washington had specifically requested countries such as South Korea to contribute military assets, Rubio said no such request had been made. However, he stressed that many Asian economies rely heavily on oil and natural gas from the Middle East, making freedom of navigation in the Strait of Hormuz a shared strategic interest. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
The Trump administration has signed a major nuclear cooperation agreement with Saudi Arabia, opening the door for American companies to play a leading role in the kingdom's commercial nuclear energy program. According to the U.S. Department of Energy on Wednesday local time, the agreement was signed by U.S. Energy Secretary Chris Wright and Saudi Energy Minister Prince Abdulaziz bin Salman. While exact details have not yet been revealed, this could enable Saudi Arabia to enrich its own uranium, while U.S. companies will receive priority access to supply nuclear reactors and fuel for the kingdom's nuclear programs. The agreement now heads to Congress for a 90-day review. If approved, the Energy Department says the partnership could last for decades and be worth billions of U.S. dollars. Korea's Kospi index swung sharply this week, rattled by rising tensions in the Middle East and the sliding global semiconductor shares, with trading volatile enough to trigger both buy and sell sidecars. For more, we're joined today by Park Min-jung, professor at the Department of Business Administration at Kumo National Institute of Technology. Hello, Professor. Thank you for joining us.
Hello. Thank you for having me today.
So, Professor, the Kospi has become one of the world's most volatile major stock benchmarks, with some analysts even saying that the Kospi is now even more volatile than Bitcoin. So what's driving these fluctuations, and what should investors be watching most closely?
Yeah, the recent surge in Kospi volatility is being driven by a combination of global and domestic factors rather than a single issue. Markets are reacting to changing expectations for U.S. interest rates, rapid shifts in AI-related semiconductor sentiment, and ongoing geopolitical uncertainty. At the same time, foreign capital has been moving in and out of the Korean market quite aggressively, amplifying short-term price swings. Another important factor is the structure of the Korean stock market itself. The KOSPI is heavily concentrated in large semiconductor companies such as Samsung Electronics and SK Hynix. As a result, changes in investor sentiment toward the AI sector can have an outsized impact on the overall index. For investors, the key indicators to watch are the direction of U.S. monetary policy and the sustainability of AI investment and foreign investment flows. Short-term volatility can be uncomfortable, but over the long term, corporate earnings and industrial competitiveness remain the most important drivers of market performance.
Right, and President Lee also ordered officials to come up with measures to address concerns over single stock leveraged ETFs. So what do you think would be the most effective regulatory response?
The leveraged ETFs provide investors with opportunities for higher returns, but they also magnify losses. Because of that, investor protection should be the primary focus of regulatory response. Rather than restricting these products outright, regulators should ensure that investors truly and fully understand these risks involved. Measures such as stronger sustainability assessments and mandatory risk disclosures before first-time procedures and purchases and enhanced investor education would likely be more effective than blanket restrictions. And also another issue is the many retail investors misunderstood leveraged ETFs as long-term investment products, even though they are primarily designed for short-term trading due to daily leverage costs.
Right, and the heads of Samsung Electronics, SK Group, and Naver are actually expected to meet Nvidia CEO Jensen Huang soon. What do you think this tells us about South Korea's position in the global AI market, and what opportunities could emerge from closer cooperation with Nvidia?
The expected meetings between the leaders of Samsung Electronics, SK Group, and Naver's and the Jensen Huang is highlight South Korea's strategies importance in the global AI ecosystems. Today, AI competitiveness is no longer determined solely by AI models. It depends on the entire ecosystem that includes advanced semiconductors, high bandwidth memory and cloud infrastructure, data centers, and AI applications. South Korea has a globally competitive position in memory semiconductors, making it as a natural and valuable partner for Nvidia. And also closer cooperation could extend beyond the chip supply into joint development of next generation AI hardware, expansion of AI infrastructure, and also broader collaboration on AI services in data centers.
Right, and Professor, to lead on from what you said, S&P Global Ratings recently upgraded Samsung Electronics' rating outlook from stable to positive. It says Samsung is likely to be the biggest beneficiary of the ongoing memory supply shortage. Now, do you expect the AI-driven semiconductor boom to continue?
I believe the AI-driven semiconductor boom has stronger long-term fundamentals rather than being a short-lived cycle. Demand for AI computing continues to expand beyond generative AI into areas such as AI agents, autonomous vehicles, robotics, and industrial automation, cloud infrastructure. All of these applications require increasingly powerful chips and advanced memory technologies. That said, it means investors should distinguish between long-term industry growth and short-term market expectations. In some these cases, optimism about AI has already been priced into stock valuations, which could lead to periods of increased volatility. So overall, I expect the AI semiconductor market to continue growing, but performance will become more differentiated.
All right, thank you very much for your insight, Professor. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Korea's economy in the second quarter grew faster than expected, largely driven by a boom in semiconductor exports despite downward pressure from rising oil prices caused by the war in the Middle East. On Thursday, the Bank of Korea reported preliminary real GDP growth of 0.6% from the previous quarter, surpassing its earlier forecast of 0.2%. Looking ahead, the key question is whether strong semiconductor demand can sustain this momentum and whether domestic consumption can broaden the recovery beyond the chip sector. The central bank has also indicated it could take stronger than expected gross national income data into account when making its next rate decision. As Korea hosts the UNESCO World Heritage Committee for the first time, Busan has opened a special exhibition where visitors can experience the country's world heritage and living traditions all in one place. Our Cho Young-eun went there to file this report.
Inside the exhibition venue in Busan, where the 48th session of the UNESCO World Heritage Committee is taking place, visitors are heading to the K-Heritage House. At the official exhibition hosted by Korea, crowds gather to watch performances of Korea's national intangible cultural heritage for an experience of living traditions. Visitors also take part in a stamp tour as they explore the exhibition, pausing to watch demonstrations of the future of heritage through media art and digital content.
I experienced the media art exhibition by the Korea Heritage Service, explored the displays, and even took part in hands-on programs led by National Intangible Cultural Heritage Masters.
Normally, it's not easy to see all of these heritage programs in one place. Here, everything is gathered together, so you don't have to travel far and can experience so many different aspects of Korea's heritage at once.
Alongside 45 exhibitions by 35 organizations, the K-Heritage House showcases Korea's 17 UNESCO World Heritage properties. At the heart of the exhibition is the Korean Tidal Flats Showcase, reflecting one of the key themes of this year's World Heritage Committee and highlighting the ecological value of Korea's natural heritage. Another featured exhibition focuses on UNESCO's Memory of the World Register, presenting 20 Korean documentary heritage items that illustrate the country's achievements, values, and spirit of community.
It is a meaningful opportunity to promote Korea's UNESCO Memory of the World Heritage to an international audience.
One of the exhibition's most popular attractions is the K-Heritage Store, where visitors browse modern lifestyle products inspired by Korea's traditional heritage. Together, the programs offer a rare glimpse into Korea's cultural heritage, beyond what visitors would normally encounter. The K-Heritage House will remain open through July 29, inviting visitors on an interactive journey through Korea's history, while offering an immersive experience of the nation's UNESCO World Heritage. Cho Young-eun, Arirang News, Busan.
Good morning, I'm Chu Ji-hyun, and this is The World Now. Google's parent company Alphabet is spending even more than expected to win the AI race. Alphabet now says 2026 capital spending could reach $205 billion, which is $15 billion more than it projected just months ago. The spending guidance reported on Wednesday overshadowed otherwise solid second quarter results. Alphabet's cloud business grew 82% to nearly $25 billion for the quarter, beating what analysts had expected, while unfiled cloud contracts climbed past $500 billion. Total sales were $103.6 billion, also above estimates. In the U.S., OpenAI says an autonomous AI agent went rogue during a security test last week and hacked into the infrastructure of AI startup Hugging Face. OpenAI says it was putting one of its most advanced models through a security test when the AI agent slipped past containment, reached the internet, and broke into Hugging Face's systems to complete the task it had been given. The company is calling it, quote, an unprecedented cyber incident involving state-of-the-art cyber capabilities. It says it's now reinforcing its safeguards. Hugging Face had to turn to a Chinese open source model to contain the attack because leading U.S. models couldn't tell a defender from an attacker and refused to process the data needed for analysis. In France, health officials say last month's heat wave was the deadliest in more than 2 decades and is linked to at least 5,700 more deaths than a normal June. The 2-week stretch of extreme heat from June 17th through July 2nd pushed deaths in the hardest hit regions to over 21,600, more than the roughly 15,900 that would typically be expected. 2 days in late June, the 24th and the 25th, were the hottest ever recorded in France, with temperatures topping 40 degrees Celsius in many areas. Paris saw nearly 2,000 more deaths than normal, a jump of about 80%. Funeral homes in the capital say they ran out of space to store bodies. Officials expect the final death toll to climb even higher once more complete data comes in. The Louvre has reopened its Apollo Gallery for the first time since a dramatic jewelry heist. Visitors can now tour the room on the way to the Mona Lisa, but there are no jewels or empty display cases on view. The museum says the gallery is returning to its original 17th century ceremonial purpose. It's been 9 months since 88 million euros, about $102 million worth of crown jewels were stolen in a daytime robbery. The stolen jewels remain unrecovered. The museum's previous director resigned after the theft, and security has since been boosted with new surveillance cameras and anti-intrusion systems.
The weather continues to show 2 different stories for central regions and southern provinces. Central areas face flood concerns from heavy monsoon rain, while southern regions face dangerous heat and tropical nights, with heat wave alerts expanding to more regions. And about the rain first, showers are spreading across the capital area and Gangwon-do province and will continue on and off throughout the day and possibly into early next week. And there could be 5 to 60 millimeters of showers with heavier rain expected for northern parts of Gyeonggi-do and Gangwon-do provinces. Today marks Daeseo, meaning big heat on the seasonal calendar. And Daegu and Gyeongju will be soaring to 35 degrees Celsius under sunny skies with strong UV rays, while Seoul will be topping out at 28 degrees, but humidity is around 100%. Similar weather patterns continue through early next week, so please stay aware of the weather and be prepared for rapidly changing weather conditions.
That's all we have for this morning. Arirang News will be back at noon Korea time. Thanks for watching.